I'm here with sHockWave. Interesting time. 5 years of Overwatch League. Pretty much done. For about half of it, you were around. And now, of course, I think a lot of your fans and fans of the league will ask themselves, currently as it stands, will you also be part of next year's Overwatch League?
I think most likely not. I would say there are chances, but yeah, most likely not.
So at this point, you're not signed to anyone and not awaiting announcements and whatnot.
No.
Right. How did the offseason treat you? Like, were you going through trials with certain teams? Did you talk to coaches? What was it like?
Honestly, not too much. Or more as like pretty much nothing, I think. Like very few trial, very little talk, so yeah. Not too much.
Right. Why do you think that is? Is it because of who you are, or is it because of the region you play in, or like the situation? Of course, like we've heard that a lot of NA is currently, because of the market crunch in APAC, a lot of talent is coming over. What do you attribute it to that you didn't get as much action?
I mean, I think region has a say in it for sure. But I think the main thing is probably as a hit scan, you're playing a very shiny role, and you kind of want to be like in the spotlight. And I think, well, obviously I can always be better at the game, but also like the situation on like Philly after Philly, like I obviously didn't get too much spotlight because I got there very late and I barely played, right? So I was kind of, I would say, like in the public perspective, I was like pretty easy to be forgotten, right? But also like lacking practice, so losing out a lot on that one. But then Vancouver as well. Like I think the situation, I don't think you can really blame like the players too much. But yeah, I think that didn't help too much either. Obviously, not really winning anything. Um, so I think like I get it from the public perspective, like it makes sense. I would do that with any other player. I think that's been the same. So that it's hard for people like a game, like Overwatch for sure, and especially the role, hit scan. If you don't really like show yourself and pop off that much, like you will pretty easily be forgotten because it is a pretty stacked role, and you have a lot of like shining players that will like overshadow you. So yeah, I think just by how the things have played out, I think it makes sense, but I hopefully still think I'm pretty good. So
Right. Now, of course, like as you said, it's a shiny role. I will also say, I think some of your former teammates probably, despite being on that team, stood out. I think Aspire probably is pretty, at least by fans, held in pretty high regards. Presumably also in the market in terms of like probably that the Defined were like that's the rumor that they were after him, right? Is there do you have any regrets in your ability to perform on the team to the level where at least you could have had, fan attention and like dominating the kill feed to a certain degree? Maybe you should have played more selfishly in some way just to, work on your market value?
nah, I mean, I genuinely think like overall I played pretty fine. Like I think looking back at most of the matches, um, I think it was overall pretty fine. I think we were playing on ultra hard mode with some of the comps we played with our players. So I think not too much to do there. Again, I don't think you can really blame anyone on the team looking at if you look at the stats or popping off whatever. And I don't like by time I become way less of a ranked player, so like playing more selfish is like not really natural. Just generally do what's best in every situation, instead of like thinking, egotistical like that. So yeah, I think most of all it's just generally not really players players fault too much. I think playing on hard mode, I would say.
Right. So, okay, the elephant in the room is here. Dpei comes in. Now that team has a much different second half of the year. Let me ask positively. What did Dpei bring in your mind to the team that allowed you to, significantly increase your win rate even while you were there, right?
Yeah, I think he was just very he was very passionate about it for sure, and you can tell that he was very dedicated. He spent a lot of time just looking matches, talking with people and stuff, and also doing that alone, right? It's not really. I don't think there's any other team that has one coach. No, I think we were the only team that season to go with one coach and no main tank. I'm pretty sure everyone else had or signed a main tank.
Eventually, yes.
I think eventually everyone ended up with one, right?
Yes.
Unless
I think so.
Yeah, except us and only one coach. So I mean, already there's kind of red flag. But you're very passionate, and I like he didn't have the more NA culture coaching. I think that we had before. It was not really like going like flaming people and being toxic. Like it was too polished, and too nice. Like if someone fucked up, like he would let you know. And I'm a fan of that style. That's just straight up nineK. Like it's just hard flaming sometimes, and I think it's fine because if you fuck up, then he lets you know. I think that's only good, right? And people also like respect that, so they also listen to him a lot more, right? So yeah, I have respect for him.
Did he let you know why you were cut from the team and then they eventually signed King, right?
I think it was mainly like I can see it makes sense, right? Because like budget wise, because if you wanna keep mirror and then you want more flex DPS after Seiko's gone, it makes sense because Aspire can he could also play Tracer if that came, right? And then having free DPS was probably not like making too much sense for that team. So like I can kind of understand it. I think the biggest fuck up was before not getting a main tank. Cause I really hard vouch for that even before I signed. Multiple. Especially Hadi. I was just like, guys, listen, okay, we need to get this guy. Like, I don't know. I was doing some crazy stuff. Like I was just really really trying because I knew how good Hadi was. But yeah, I don't know. We just ended up kind of waiting because also in the beta, like Zarya was hard meta, right? It was Zarya, Sojourn Reaper, Lucian Moira, like even before the game came out, and then it's like, okay, maybe off tanks are broken, which like people were all in this this kind of trajectory, right? So we kind of waited, and then yeah, I think we kind of trolled a little bit by doing that. So yeah, because I think it's pretty obvious to see like towards the end when you had like people playing their actual roles on the team, they were actually playing good, right? They were actually winning. When they were in the Junker meta, like you can have mirror on the hero there, it makes sense, right? And then later like False on Zarya, was it last stage or was it? Yeah, I can't remember. It was like towards the end, right?
Mm-hmm.
And people were playing their actual roles and comps that made sense all the time. Then they suddenly won stuff, right? So
right.
Yeah.
Now, in my mind, okay, so there was a lot of talk prior to the season because I'm trying to evaluate the decisions making process from that time, right? You can only evaluate from the point that you have to make the decision. And I think a lot of people were saying, right, we had consolidating the entire role onto one person, and that person has to, play everything theoretically, but maybe they can't, and then we got to figure it out. But theoretically speaking, it seems to us that the off tanks are the more mechanically gifted guys, are probably a little bit more flexible. If you had asked me who's the most likely to adapt to like Overwatch League Season 5, I would have probably told you like someone like Void would have been on my market. Do you think that's now disproven theory? Or is it more important to have the main tank to be the main guy? Because the one team that I actually do remember only had one tank by choice because they ejected their other team very early, someone, right? And Florida Mayhem. So
Yeah.
do you think like the future is always two tanks, or is it can we move to the singular tank?
I honestly don't think it has too much to do with the tanks. It has some value to it, of course. Like how good the players are and how flexible they are and how they can adapt. But I personally think London is like a prime example of having good macro and having good coaching and making stuff work. Like you can on paper like Shock as well, where Kalush, right, playing monkey, and maybe sometimes like he doesn't do the primals like Fearless does, but he just has nineK and Krusty behind him, right? And they just understand the macro, they understand their win cons, and it suddenly looks completely fine, right? Like I think that's just so important, and it has been, I think, in Overwatch too. Even when we played in contenders, like just understanding the macro, like it's unmatched, I think, to anything. So I think, of course, you can have mechanically, gifted players and people that can adapt fast and stuff. But I think it's also more on the back end. Just people playing, like, you simplify it for players and tanks. Like a lot of people can play those roles. I think so. Yeah, I think that's honestly the main point. So in the future, I don't know. I think like with good coach and good macro and good team play, like you can make one tank work for sure. But I think it also depends on meta, because when it has been pretty Lucio heavy, it's when it's only one comp, like you only one trick comp, that's very macro heavy, right? But if you suddenly have to swap and then randomly someone has to go diva, but if they haven't been coached on that meta, right, then that might be tough. So I think depending on meta, but heavily depending on macro and coaching, I think.
Have you thought about this? Like, let's say the first two stages fall into your lap. Like, you can play a lot of like the comps that you were good at, and like you also play those comps. Do you think your season looks very differently then?
Yes, 100%. It's so annoying, but yeah, we were talking at the start after we lost our two first matches. I was heavily advocating because I don't think Apex had started yet. I think we played 4 matches before Apex started, I think. But I knew I don't know why. Maybe because I still talk to some of the Philly teammates, but they were playing like Zarya and stuff, like the Dallas style, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like people playing Monkey, and I was like, we might as well just make this work, because I kept telling Falls as well, because that guy grinds, like he grinded infinite hours on Monkey, right? And I respect that so much. But as I said, um, in the room as well, is that like it's not his mechanics or his learning ability like to play Monkey. It's just the coaching, like it's the macro. It's the perfect example with like him and Kalush, because you just see like complete two opposites, right? Like where I think Smash as well and Glads, like with Reiner, you know, like none of these guys are Koreans, right? They haven't played Monkey their whole life or something, but just having smart people behind the scenes, it just like it's night and day, right? So I was I was trying to hard force it. I really was, but yeah, I think I don't know, just kind of tanked it. Yeah.
What is the process like of being micro coached by like one of the great coaches? Like, of course, in nineK. Like, what is the process? Like, how can fans imagine like what the day-to-day looks like?
I mean, I think first of all, like nineK is. I mean, that guy is so smart. It's like cringe. It's no. It's like it's almost pissing you off. Like how big of a like nerd he is and how smart he is. Like it's so insane. It's so crazy. But I think because before I flew to Korea, I remember it was like eye opening to me. It was like crazy because he wanted to like just watch like Tracer and some Widow and some random stuff, and I just sent one replay code from an EU rank game, and this guy he just sends back like a 35-minute long video, right? And I remember on Tracer like um he halfway through the like he's talking about some stuff and he's talking like so all sorts like cooldown ability gameplay like and most of it like I mean pretty much everything is just like yeah I mean that just makes sense, right? Like you can't even question it. But then like halfway through he jumps into practice range and the first thing he says is like yeah okay so basically like when I taught Striker how to play Tracer like this was kind of how I began with it, you know? And then you're kind of like oh okay that's kind of okay that's the level, right?
Yeah.
And then he kind of talks stuff that would make sense. He talks about just blink management, crosshair precision, and stuff, and it was kind of weird to me because that was like the first time where I was, bro, you know, like I'm playing the game, you know, like I know how to place my crosshair and like blink and stuff, but even like it's just and he was just true, like it was just so like right about all of that, and when you then just like don't actively think about it in game, it's just like it makes you that's when you become like really really smart and you start thinking like about the enemies instead of like your own mechanics and aim and all this stuff. So I think like the main thing is just him just making you understand maybe like simple stuff, but I think a lot of people they don't like really value it, like how to peek on with how to grab a shot, you know, tracer blinks, tracer aim, like yeah it makes sense and most people probably know it, but he just lay it out there like so easy, you know. So I think that for sure. But also just his dedication, but also his like his personality. You know, if you fuck up, like he will let you know. Uh, you know, I remember one time in Scrim, he like I bob and it was just bad, like it was a terrible bob, and he just like question mark, and he typed like why, you know, like mid Scrim.
Right.
And it was just like I don't know, probably versus like Shanghai or something, right? And you kind of want to be focused. But I really like that because I know he like there's no personal stuff about it, you know, like it's not like he's gonna bench me like just because I do that, right? He talks to you like in a professional way, right? He only wants to improve, right, and just win. Um, so a great micro coach like that, like it's just insane dedication. So naturally you have a lot of respect for them. So you also just listen to yeah, pretty much every word they say. So
There are multiple ways to sharpen a knife and get better at the game. One, of course, like as you explained, is coaching. The other is opposition, right? You mentioned scrimming Shanghai, and
mhm.
I mean, there's not that much opposition in terms of like the top tier talent in Europe, right? Like
No.
it's probably pretty challenging to get scrims against even East Coast teams. Depending also where you guys live, it's probably really hard. Because of that, your level drops. Therefore, you get even less attractive as a scrim partner in on ping. So, what is it like being in Europe right now? And is it better during the off season when the guys come back from the league?
No, because you don't scrim in the off season, right? So it's even worse. It's honestly like it's I don't know. It's pretty boring, honestly. Like I hate saying like that, you know. It sounds so like selfish and stuff, but I don't know. I think it's pretty clear to see that we're like miles ahead, you know. Like the the B-sides grand final, I think some people, got a bit too hyped, a bit too excited. Like you can clearly see that we just completely steamrolled, right? We almost did a golden run, right? We dropped one map before that. Like it was not even close, right? Scrims as well. So I think that was a bit close for other reasons, but I mean, just look at last, right? Like it's like a 4-0, through one of the maps. Like I don't know, like my counterpart drops because he's about to go like 007 KD, aka James Bond, right? Like in the grand finals, So yeah, I don't know. It's not too hot with the practice. Like I remember the monkey meta. We were kind of thinking like what we should play. Before like was it running back? No, yeah, was it running back or the last contenders we just played, right? And we were scrimming. We were like doing like okay at the start because we had to like learn the monkey comp, right? And I remember we scrim London and we just get, I don't know. It's been a long time since I've been rolled that much. I think last time I got rolled that much was one time against O2 or something on Philly, but we got absolutely rolled. Like I don't know, completely rolled. Like it was insane. We were like laughing about it, Um, and but that scrim, halfway through the scrim, it clicked. At least for me, right? Like, cause I just saw how they played it, and they played like the very, I forget if it was Shocker Dallas that played like that, but basically like when the Winston jumps in, you slide in, and then you end up all stacked in your own monkey bubble, right? Like that strat. And that was just one scrim, and we were 1 week ahead of the whole of EU. Like not even one scrim, halfway through the scrim, right? It was that different. So yeah, I talking about teammates about it as well, and yeah, I don't know. Even winning wasn't like too satisfying because I think it's pretty obvious to see that the gap is like crazy big, right? So yeah, I mean, it's I hate talking like that. Like it sounds so sounds so trash to say, right? But I mean that is how it is. So yeah, the practice is not that great.
Do you think the quality of your ranked is also a problem in that regard? Like, is there any OWL player currently? Like, are there OWL players currently queuing ranked in Europe?
Yeah, I mean they're queuing, but it's so bad. It's unbearable. But I mean, ranked is ranked. Like I don't think you can improve like too much from it. But when you get to a point where you can't even improve from scrims, or like you can, but like we basically, the way we improved in scrims is like we like play to beat the other teams, right? Our overall level as players compared to let's say OWL was not getting crazy high, right? Like because I think a lot of times it's funny because we were talking about it. I remember nineK was talking about it sometimes that we had like fake data, right, or fake scrims, because a lot of times, especially Sojourn, he said that it didn't matter really if we played right or wrong because I just killed someone like every single fight, right? Or I would have like triple double damage, or we would have like infinitely better Kiriko ults, or prime, like our macro was blah blah blah, right? So even sometimes when we played wrong, like technically wrong, we still just wiped them and won, right? Because the level is not higher. And you can even see that I think some teams, they just straight up gave up playing monkey, right? Because it's EU, and you've seen that before. Like it was the same with the ball meta when it was ball tracer Sombra. We just played Mercy bat, like it started with Sen Bab or Riz or something. But then in EU, Sen was too hard, so they just swapped to Mercy and they play Mercy Echo instead of Tracer Sen, right? It's almost laughable, right? But I mean that's just the case. So yeah, I think it's tough because it's hard for people to also move somewhere. Like how can people ever improve if that's just not being played, right? And if it's not stacked enough, like it's like it's like a domino effect, you know. It just keeps going down. So
How feasible is it to scrim East Coast teams?
I mean, it's like it's doable, right? And we had some in the John Queen as well. Like we had more because for the last contender season, like there were plenty of our teams, East Coast bottom teams that we would usually scrim that were out. So they were already like on holiday and stuff, right? And in off season. But like we scrim, you know, some the you know like London, Toronto, New York. We scrim some with the John Queen meta. And it was like fine. You know, the ping on East is like doable. So yeah, but I think towards the end, a lot of people were already like in their off season, so there wasn't even too much happening there in terms of scrims. So
I think there's like an outside chance that, you know, once you're on your little island and you're not interacting much with Owl, that you find out something about the game that they don't, and then they get good at it. Like for a while we thought that was Europe and goats and whatnot, right? Like they would bring it there. The transition was a little harder, but at least the idea of playing that became the definitive thing, right? That in season 2. So
yeah.
is there any hope that you guys figure something out about the game that's novel, and then you could theoretically like take a couple of matches or whatever if you were to?
Like, are you thinking like funny like Pharah Hawk comps, you know, like funny one tricks or
Something like this? Let's say like Gauntlet came back. You are all playing against Koreans. Is it just like a stomp because they have access to our teams and you don't, or is there a world where you can be competitive?
I think I highly doubt it, honestly, because I think EU is pretty dog shit. I think we are the only team that can somewhat compete with some. But I think even like I mean even NA and arguably also Korea is not that good. Like you have like O2, and then in NA I don't know, that was kind of mixed result. Like no one really like really stomped, right? But yeah, honestly, I don't know. I can probably count on like both my hands who I like think deserve like owl or can like play like bottom owl, you know. I don't know about like mid owl, you know. I don't know. It's tough. I think sometimes, you know, people talk like, oh yeah, this guy, you know, that guy. I think that's just like media. I don't know. I think being realistic, people are really bad. I mean, even us included, like, I mean, I think we're pretty good, I would say, right? But the the level in owl, you know, compared to you know EU especially, it's GG's. I don't know. It's gonna take a miracle, I think. But it makes sense, right? Because they practice each other every day, right? Like if you sit and scrim proper, it's gonna take you a week, and your tracer is better than playing EU rank for 2 years, right? Like you just play against them. You have a decent coach. You look at his replays. You study it, like you all that stuff, and then you play him again next week. You know, boom. That's like 2 years of EU progress, right? Like, so it's just like exponential, right? Because you know the opponents will get better, and then so it's really it's looking pretty doomed. It's it's tough, I think.
All right, let's try to have some hope here, because I mean the World Cup is coming back. We know that for sure. Do you think that will help at all?
Hopefully, because I think like I think like just a general good example of just having good macro can just get you so far, because it is not that stacked. Like even the league, you know, like you can beat some teams that on paper have these insane players, but you've seen it time and time again. Some of these like teams, they don't know what to do, right? Like they don't understand a certain macro, and then they can just lose to anyone almost, right? So it will be interesting, but I think it depends a lot on the meta, I think. And it will do every time, because as soon as you start being those like heavy mechanical Monkeyana Send Tracer, then EU teams are GG's, I think. Unless they can cheese it and play like fast Lucia Moira funny comp, flanking Roadhog, I don't know, stuff like that. But if you have good team play and understand the macro, like then you can maybe get some wins.
Right. Now, of course, as a last part, I think for a moment when NA had most of their left academy teams, it was already the trend that a lot of European players would go to North America in those academy teams and then have a chance, and that was the promotion pipeline. Now a new contender emerges, and it sounds like those offers are good enough that they might even be the better deal than some of the OWL contracts this year. And of course, I'm talking about Collegiate, where the level has upped consistently in terms of what Collegiate is able to offer. Of course, that's also like looking ahead in terms of education, and like you gotta live the rest of your life. That seems to be an attractive offer, right? Is that something you would consider?
I'm never going back to school. So no, not at all. I think it's always main thing for me is always just been to have fun. I don't really care what I'm doing in life as long as I have fun. The same with Overwatch. Like I still enjoy like competing, playing contenders was fun. I mean, probably also because we were like winning. Also that helps quite a bit. But like with the French land, I think like E-leagues as well, like maybe contenders or something, like some stuff happening, and with our team, like I don't know. For me, it's just as long as I have fun, I don't really mind. Like uh, you know, I could if an our team is so bad, or I just know I would not thrive in a certain environment, then I probably wouldn't even go there, right? So I think I just mainly value just doing something I enjoy doing. But yeah, school is ah, probably not gonna happen unless I don't know. Or maybe I find some weird interest or something. Yeah.
Have you planned out what this year will look like for you, or like, do you just want to? Is your goal still to get into Overwatch League, or are you fine like playing those tier 2s and like the World Cups and all the other little parts of the Overwatch circuit that could be played?
I mean, obviously, I want to go back Overwatch League. But again, I think esport is very unpredictable. I could get matches tomorrow, get an offer. I could get matches in a month. There could be some other crazy stuff happening. You never really know in esports, and especially in Overwatch. So I think time will tell. But I think I wouldn't mind like playing as long as it's fun, as I said, right? But then again, it's annoying being like that much ahead, right? Because you're kind of stuck, right? Like it gets to a point where, like as I said, when we won the second time, like we were happy, but it was not like crazy satisfying. Like yeah, because you're kind of a point where the point of you playing it is obviously to have fun, but you also want to make our right. But if you're not making if you're not going out, and then you keep like rolling, like what can you do, right? Like it's almost a bit out of your hands. Uh, so yeah, not too sure, but I still enjoy it, so I'll for sure still play. And I think we also proved like on our team that we still are pretty good at the game. It's pretty clear to think to see, I think. So yeah, keep dominating, I guess.
Does it have to be Overwatch that you get your competitive itch scratched from, or could you imagine, Valorant is right there, right?
Nah, that game is so slow. My Overwatch ADHD brain, 10-second respawn, people flying everywhere, shooting headshot there. Yeah, no way. No way. I can't enjoy that game. I don't know. I don't think so. Cause I still enjoy Overwatch. So yeah, I really doubt it.
And here I was I thought that your Danish mother milk would have baked the CS instincts into you.
Yeah, no, yeah. I mean, it would have to be CS there, but even like, I feel like it's so hard to go from Overwatch to CS:GO. Like it's so strategic, and you throw a smoke here, and then you hold an angle for 30 seconds without touching a single key. And Overwatch is just like you're just on drugs, right? Like you're just crazy stuff going on all the time. So yeah, I play the game I enjoy. I think so yeah.
Sure. Then we hope the best of luck to you. Maybe some opportunities open up during the season. And thank you for the interview.
No problem.